Story 1. The room that was already occupied. Hotels are supposed to be temporary places. You check in, spend a night or two, and leave without ever thinking about who stayed in your room before you or who might be staying beside you. But sometimes, the people inside a hotel aren't where they're supposed to be. The following incident took place at a roadside hotel outside Nashville, Tennessee, and according to the guest involved, his room key opened a door that should never have been assigned to him. 31-year-old Daniel Foster was traveling for work in the spring of 2024. After nearly 8 hours on the road, exhaustion had begun setting in. Around 11 p.m., he decided to stop for the night. The hotel sat just off the interstate. Nothing special. 3 floors. A small lobby. The kind of chain hotel thousands of people pass through every day. The parking lot remained mostly empty. A good sign. Daniel checked in without problems. The young receptionist looked tired but friendly. She handed him a key card and assigned him room 214. Second floor. At the end of the western hallway, Daniel grabbed a bottle of water from the lobby store and headed upstairs. The corridor felt unusually quiet. Soft yellow lights illuminated the carpet. Most doors remained closed. No voices. No televisions. Nothing. By the time he reached room 214, he was already thinking about sleep. He tapped the key card against the lock. The light turned green. The door clicked open. And immediately, something felt wrong. The television was on. Muted. A suitcase sat beside the bed. Clothes hung over a chair near the window. The bathroom light remained illuminated. Daniel froze. Someone was already staying there. His first thought was simple. The front desk had made a mistake. Embarrassed, he quietly backed out and closed the door. Before leaving, however, he noticed something unsettling. The room looked occupied, but there wasn't a single person inside. No movement, no sounds, no running shower, nothing. Still, mistakes happened. He returned downstairs. The receptionist immediately apologized. Apparently, another employee had forgotten to update the room assignments. She issued a new key. Room 307. Top floor. Daniel accepted the explanation and thought nothing more of it, until the receptionist said something strange. Whoever is in 214 should already be asleep. Please don't knock if you go back upstairs. The comment caught him off guard. Daniel explained that nobody had been there. The room was empty. The receptionist looked confused. According to the computer system, only one guest occupied room 214. An older man who had checked in 3 days earlier. No visitors. No complaints. Nothing unusual. Daniel shrugged and headed toward the elevator. But as the doors began closing, he looked across the lobby windows toward the parking lot and felt his stomach tighten. Because standing beside the second-floor railing outside room 214 was a man, perfectly still, looking down into the courtyard, hands resting at his sides, watching absolutely nothing. The strange part wasn't his appearance. It was the fact that Daniel had walked that exact hallway less than 5 minutes earlier, and there had been nobody there. The strange part wasn't his appearance. It was the fact that Daniel had walked that exact hallway less than 5 minutes earlier, and there had been nobody there. Daniel stared through the lobby windows. The man remained perfectly still. Older, gray hair, dark sweater, one hand resting on the railing, the other hanging loosely by his side. For several seconds, he didn't move. Then the elevator doors closed. When Daniel reached the 3rd floor, he tried convincing himself there was a simple explanation. Maybe the guest had stepped outside while he returned to reception. Nothing more. Room 307 sat near the opposite end of the building. This time, the room was genuinely empty. Fresh towels, unused bed, no television playing, no luggage. Everything looked normal. Exhausted, Daniel locked the door and prepared for sleep. Around 2:40 a.m., however, he woke to footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, measured. Someone walking past his room, then back again. And again, the pattern continued for nearly 15 minutes. Finally, curiosity got the better of him. Looking through the peephole, Daniel felt his stomach tighten. The same older man from outside room 214 stood in the hallway, motionless, facing room 307, not knocking, not speaking, simply standing there. After nearly a minute, the man slowly turned and walked toward the elevators. Daniel waited until morning before mentioning anything. At breakfast, he casually asked the receptionist about the older gentleman in room 214. The young woman immediately looked uncomfortable. She called over the hotel manager. The manager listened quietly, then asked Daniel to describe the man. Gray hair, dark sweater, tall, around 60 years old. The manager's expression changed, because according to hotel records, the guest in room 214 had checked in alone 3 days earlier. Housekeeping never entered the room because of the privacy notice on the door. Nobody had physically seen him since. Concerned, the manager accompanied security upstairs. Daniel followed. Room 214 opened with a master key. The television still played silently. The suitcase remained beside the bed. Clothes still hung over the chair. But the room itself was empty. Completely empty. No guest. No belongings beyond the obvious luggage. No signs that anyone had slept there. Then security discovered something strange. Inside the suitcase sat neatly folded clothing, newspapers, medication bottles, and personal documents. Every newspaper carried dates from March 2018, 6 years earlier. The identification inside belonged to a man named Robert Hayes. The hotel manager immediately recognized the name. Robert had stayed at the hotel during a cross-country road trip years ago. One evening, he left his room and never returned. His family reported him missing. No evidence of foul play was ever found. No body was recovered. The case eventually went cold. Yet somehow, his belongings remained exactly where he'd left them. Housekeeping records showed the room had been closed for months after his disappearance, eventually renovated, reopened, and reassigned countless times. Nobody understood how the suitcase had returned, or why the computer system suddenly listed room 214 as occupied again. Police investigated the incident. No fingerprints, no recent activity, nothing. Officially, the case remains unsolved. Daniel never stayed at that hotel again. But several months later, while traveling through Tennessee, curiosity led him to search online reviews. One comment caught his attention. A guest wrote that they had accidentally been given access to room 214. The room appeared occupied. The television played quietly. A suitcase rested beside the bed, and standing outside on the second-floor railing was an older man looking down into the courtyard, waiting for someone who never came back. To this day, employees tell new staff members to double-check the reservation system whenever room 214 appears as occupied, because no matter how many times they remove the listing, every few years, Robert Hayes checks back in. Story 2. The knock at 3:14 a.m. Hotels are strange places after midnight. Hundreds of strangers sleep under the same roof, connected only by thin walls and long corridors. Most late-night noises have simple explanations. A television left on, someone returning from a night out, a family arriving late. But occasionally, a sound comes from outside your door that nobody can explain. The following incident took place at a hotel in Phoenix, Arizona, and according to the woman involved, a single knock changed the way she traveled forever. 28-year-old Emily Carter was in Arizona for a 3-day business conference in the summer of 2023. The event itself had gone smoothly. Long meetings, networking dinners, nothing unusual. By the second night, exhaustion had completely taken over. She returned to her hotel shortly after 10 p.m. The building stood in the downtown district. 12 floors, modern interiors, keycard elevators, the kind of place that felt perfectly safe. Her room sat on the 9th floor, room 917, near the end of a quiet hallway. Before going to bed, Emily called her husband back home in Chicago. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Around midnight, she locked the door, checked the deadbolt twice, and finally fell asleep. At exactly 3:14 a.m., she woke to 3 soft knocks. Not pounding, not aggressive, just 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. At first, she assumed she had imagined it. Still half asleep, she looked toward the clock beside the bed. 3:14. The room remained silent. Several moments passed. Then it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. Emily sat upright. Nobody should have been visiting her. The conference organizers certainly weren't knocking on doors in the middle of the night. Carefully, she approached the peephole. The hallway outside appeared empty. Soft yellow lights. Closed doors. No movement. Nobody standing there. Uneasy, she returned to bed. 5 minutes later, the knocking returned. Exactly 3 taps. Same rhythm. Same softness. This time, Emily called the front desk. The night manager answered immediately. When she explained the situation, his response surprised her. He asked a single question. "Is somebody saying your room number?" Emily frowned. Nobody had spoken at all. Only knocking. The manager seemed relieved. He promised to send security upstairs. 10 minutes later, a guard arrived. He checked the hallway, the stairwells, the elevators. Nothing. No guests wandering around. No prank. No explanation. Embarrassed, Emily apologized and tried sleeping again. At 3:14 a.m. the following night, the knocking returned. Exactly the same. 3 slow taps, coming from directly outside room 917. Only this time, a voice accompanied it. Quiet, almost whispering. Room 917. Emily's blood ran cold, because whoever stood outside knew exactly where she was. And according to the hotel's digital key records, nobody had entered the 9th floor in over an hour. And according to the hotel's digital key records, nobody had entered the 9th floor in over an hour. Emily immediately called the front desk. The same night manager answered. But the moment she mentioned the whispering voice, his tone changed. He told her not to open the door. Not under any circumstances. Security arrived within minutes. This time, 2 guards searched the entire floor. Every hallway, every staircase, every maintenance closet. Nothing. No guests. No sign that anyone had been outside room 917. One of the guards even reviewed the nearby security camera. The footage showed an empty corridor. No movement. No person approaching her room. No one knocking. Yet at exactly 3:14 a.m., Emily could clearly hear 3 knocks coming through the recording. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through an empty hallway. The following morning, the hotel manager personally met with her. He offered a room change on another floor, room 402, far from the 9th floor. Naturally, Emily accepted. Before leaving, however, she asked the night manager why he'd sounded relieved when she said nobody mentioned her room number on the first night. The older man hesitated, then finally explained. Several years earlier, a woman staying in room 917 reported identical knocking at exactly 3:14 a.m. 3 soft taps. Every night. At first, management dismissed it as a prank, until she claimed somebody outside was quietly repeating her room number. Room 917. According to staff records, she opened the door on the 3rd night. The hallway was empty, but the security footage captured something strange. The woman stepped into the corridor, looked toward the elevators, then walked out of camera view. She never returned. Her belongings remained inside the room. Her car stayed in the parking garage. She was never seen again. The case remained unsolved. Hotel ownership changed years later. Most employees forgot about it, except the night staff. The ones who still avoided assigning room 917 whenever possible. Disturbed, Emily checked into her new room. The rest of the day passed normally. She convinced herself the strange incidents were over. At 3:14 a.m. that night, 3 knocks echoed through room 402. Knock, knock, knock. Her blood turned to ice. Impossible. She had changed floors, changed hallways, changed rooms. Yet the sound remained exactly the same. Then the whisper returned. Soft, calm, almost patient. Room 402. Emily immediately called the front desk. The night manager answered before the first ring completed. As though he'd been expecting the call, he instructed her to remain inside and keep the television on until sunrise. The following morning, Emily packed her belongings and left the hotel entirely. She booked another place across town, a completely different building, different management, different ownership, no connection whatsoever. For the remainder of her trip, nothing unusual happened. Years later, curiosity led her to research the original incident. What she discovered unsettled her even more. The woman who vanished from room 917 had disappeared on August 14, 2014, at exactly 3:14 a.m. And according to witness statements, she'd repeatedly told investigators about someone whispering her room number outside the door. One final detail emerged from the police report. The missing woman had originally been assigned room 402, only switching to room 917 after reporting problems with the air conditioning. The realization terrified Emily, because it meant the knocking wasn't attached to a room. It followed the guest. To this day, she refuses to stay alone in hotels. And whenever she travels for work, she checks one thing before accepting a key card: the room number. Because if it ends with 17, she asks for another room, no matter what floor it's on. And according to former employees from that Phoenix hotel, every few years, a guest still calls the front desk at exactly 3:14 a.m., always reporting the same thing: 3 soft knocks, an empty hallway, and a quiet voice outside the door, patiently repeating their room number. Story 3. The guest on the security cameras. Hotels rely on security cameras for everything. They monitor entrances, elevators, parking lots, and hallways 24 hours a day. Most recordings capture nothing more interesting than tired travelers carrying luggage or families heading to breakfast. But sometimes, the cameras see someone that nobody else can find. The following incident took place at a hotel outside Denver, Colorado, and according to the night manager involved, one particular guest appeared on camera for years without ever checking in. 36-year-old Michael Turner had worked the overnight shift at the Pine Ridge Suites for nearly 5 years. The job was quiet, mostly paperwork, occasional late arrivals, the usual complaints about air conditioning or missing towels. By 2 a.m., the building typically fell silent. The hotel stood near the interstate. 3 floors, 80 rooms, nothing remarkable, at least during the day. Employees, however, knew about one strange detail. Every few months, somebody reported seeing a man in a dark overcoat walking the 3rd floor hallway after midnight. Guests assumed he belonged to another room. Staff assumed he was a visitor. Nobody thought much about it, until they checked the cameras. One November evening in 2024, Michael received a complaint from room 318. The guest claimed someone had been pacing outside their door for nearly 20 minutes. Not knocking, not speaking, just walking slowly back and forth. Michael apologized and opened the security feed. Camera 3 overlooked the hallway. Immediately, he spotted the man. Tall, dark overcoat, black suitcase in his right hand, moving at a slow, deliberate pace. Nothing appeared threatening, yet something felt strange. The man never looked toward any doors, never checked his phone, never stopped walking. He simply moved between room 318 and the emergency stairwell. Again and again, Michael checked the reservation system. No guest matching that description occupied the hotel. Assuming somebody had slipped in from outside, he contacted security. One guard headed upstairs. Michael kept watching the cameras. The moment the guard entered the 3rd floor, the man disappeared. Not into a room, not into the stairwell, simply gone. The hallway became empty. Security searched every corner. Nothing. No guest. No suitcase. No explanation. The following morning, Michael reviewed the footage again. That's when he noticed something disturbing. The timestamp showed the man appearing at exactly 2:17 a.m. and disappearing at exactly 2:31 a.m. 14 minutes. Precisely. Curious, Michael checked older recordings. His blood ran cold, because the same man appeared on footage from 6 months earlier. Same overcoat. Same suitcase. Same route. Same exact times. 2:17 a.m. until 2:31 a.m. Every single appearance lasted 14 minutes. And according to archived reports, nobody had ever found him. Then, while scrolling through footage from 3 years earlier, Michael discovered something even stranger. The cameras had captured the same man. Unchanged. Not a day older. Walking the exact same hallway. Carrying the exact same suitcase. As though time itself had forgotten him. At the bottom of one old incident report, a former manager had written a single sentence. Do not follow the guest if he enters the stairwell. Do not follow the guest if he enters the stairwell. Michael read the sentence 3 times. No explanation. No additional notes. Just that warning. Naturally, curiosity took over. The following week, he prepared himself. At 2:15 a.m., he opened the security cameras. 2 minutes later, the man appeared. Exactly on schedule. Dark overcoat. Black suitcase. Same slow pace. Same expressionless face. Michael immediately notified the security guard on duty. This time, they agreed to watch from a distance. No confrontation. No interaction. Just observation. At precisely 2:29 a.m., the man stopped walking. For the first time, Michael saw him do something different. He turned toward the emergency stairwell, opened the door, and entered. The guard, ignoring the old warning, followed 30 seconds later. Michael watched the live feed. The guard disappeared into the stairwell. 1 minute passed, then 2. No response over the radio. Concerned, Michael called again. Silence. Finally, after nearly 4 minutes, the guard returned. But something seemed wrong. The man looked pale, disoriented, as though he'd seen something he couldn't explain. According to his account, he followed the stranger down a single flight of stairs. The man never ran, never hurried. He simply walked. Then, midway between the second and third floors, he vanished. The stairwell ended in empty space. No doors opening, no sounds, nothing. Only one object remained. The black suitcase, sitting alone on the landing. The guard picked it up and immediately regretted it, because attached to the handle was an old hotel luggage tag. The date written on it read, November 12, 1998, 26 years earlier. Inside the suitcase were neatly folded clothes, a newspaper, a room key, and a reservation confirmation. Room 318. Michael felt a chill, because room 318 still existed. And earlier that night, the mysterious guest had been pacing directly outside it. The following morning, Michael contacted the hotel's longtime owner. The older man fell silent after hearing the story. Then he finally explained. Back in 1998, a businessman named Arthur Grayson checked into room 318 during a snowstorm. He planned to stay one night before continuing west. He never checked out. According to reports, Arthur left his room shortly after 2 a.m. carrying a suitcase. Security cameras followed him toward the stairwell. Then he disappeared. No signs of foul play. No evidence. No body. The case remained one of the town's strangest unsolved mysteries. Michael searched old newspaper archives. The photograph attached to the article made his blood run cold. The face matched perfectly. Same overcoat. Same suitcase. Same man. Not a single feature had changed. The hotel eventually updated its internal policies. Staff members no longer investigate reports involving a man carrying black luggage on the 3rd floor after midnight. Instead, they simply move guests to another room, especially if they're staying in 318. Officially, management attributes the stories to urban legends and overactive imaginations. Unofficially, night employees know better, because every November 12th, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the cameras still capture Arthur Grayson walking the hallway, always for 14 minutes, always carrying the same suitcase, and always stopping outside room 318, as though he's trying to remember something, or waiting for someone to finally open the door and tell him why he never made it home. No employee has followed him into the stairwell since, and the old warning remains pinned inside the security office to this day. Do not follow the guest if he enters the stairwell. Story 4. The elevator that never reached the lobby. Most hotel elevators are forgettable. You step inside, press a button, and spend less than a minute thinking about them. But employees who work overnight shifts know that strange things happen when buildings grow quiet. The following incident took place at a hotel in New Orleans, Louisiana, and according to the night auditor involved, one elevator kept stopping at a floor that no longer existed. 29-year-old Lauren Mitchell had worked the overnight shift at the Magnolia Crest Hotel for nearly 3 years. The hours suited her. Less stress, fewer guests, mostly paperwork and occasional check-ins from travelers arriving late. The hotel itself was old, very old, originally built during the 1920s before undergoing several renovations over the decades. Modern rooms, updated interiors, but beneath everything remained the bones of the original building. Employees often joked that the hotel had more history than guests. Most ignored the stories, Lauren included, until February of 2025. The incident began with a simple maintenance complaint. Several guests staying on the 6th floor reported hearing the elevator doors opening throughout the night. Not unusual, except nobody ever stepped out. The elevator would arrive. The doors would remain open for several seconds, then close again, over and over. Housekeeping assumed children were pressing random buttons. Management blamed technical issues. Yet maintenance inspections found nothing wrong. Everything functioned perfectly. One Tuesday evening, Lauren decided to monitor the security cameras herself. Shortly after midnight, the hotel settled into silence. Only a handful of rooms remained occupied. At exactly 1:42 a.m., elevator B began moving. Nobody had called it. No guests stood nearby. The control panel showed something impossible. Instead of traveling to floor 1 or floor 6, the display briefly showed the number 7. Lauren frowned. The hotel only had 6 floors. She checked twice. The building plans confirmed it. No 7th floor existed. Yet moments later, the elevator stopped. The doors opened and remained open. The camera inside showed an empty cabin. No passengers. No movement. After 15 seconds, the doors closed again. Lauren assumed it was a malfunction, until the same thing happened the following night, and the night after that, always at exactly 1:42 a.m., always showing floor 7, always returning empty. Then came the guest complaint that changed everything. A businessman staying in room 604 approached the desk early one morning. He looked exhausted. According to him, he had accidentally entered elevator B after returning from dinner. Instead of taking him to the lobby, the elevator traveled upward, past floor 6. The display changed to 7. The doors opened and revealed a long hallway lined with old-fashioned wallpaper and antique room numbers. No modern lighting, no music, no people, just silence. The businessman immediately pressed the lobby button. The doors closed. When they reopened seconds later, he was back on the 1st floor. He assumed he had been dreaming, until he noticed one detail. The carpet inside the elevator carried muddy footprints. Not his, someone else's, leading out of the cabin, and back in again. The carpet inside the elevator carried muddy footprints. Not his, someone else's, leading out of the cabin, and back in again. Lauren listened carefully. The businessman wasn't drunk, wasn't exaggerating. If anything, he seemed embarrassed to even mention it. Still, the story bothered her, because the old blueprints of the hotel contained something interesting. Before renovations in the 1960s, the building had originally included a 7th floor, a small section reserved for long-term guests and private suites. A fire in 1964 severely damaged that level. Rather than rebuilding it, developers removed the entire floor and redesigned the roof structure. Officially, floor 7 ceased to exist. The elevator controls were replaced. The numbering changed. And over time, people forgot it had ever been there. At least most people did. The following night, Lauren decided to stay near elevator B. At exactly 1:42 a.m., the display flickered. 1, 3, 5, 6, then 7. The doors opened. From where she stood behind the desk, the cabin appeared empty. But something was different. The interior lighting looked dimmer, warmer, almost yellow, like an older building. Heart pounding, Lauren stepped closer. The open doors revealed a hallway, not the inside of an elevator shaft. A real hallway, patterned wallpaper, brass room numbers, old chandeliers. Everything looked decades out of date. And at the far end, someone stood beside room 712. A man in a dark suit, holding a suitcase, waiting. Lauren immediately pressed the emergency stop button. The doors slammed shut. When she reopened them seconds later, the ordinary elevator interior had returned. Nothing remained. The next morning, she reported everything to the hotel owner. The elderly man sighed, then quietly admitted that older staff members had spoken about similar incidents for years. According to local history, the 1964 fire started in room 712. One guest never escaped, a traveling salesman named Walter Pierce, 38 years old, married, 2 children. He was last seen carrying a suitcase toward the elevators during the evacuation, but he never made it downstairs. His body was never recovered. Official records simply listed him as missing. Curious and unsettled, Lauren searched newspaper archives. The photograph accompanying the article made her blood run cold. Dark suit, same face, same suitcase, the exact man she'd seen standing outside room 712. From that point onward, hotel employees developed an unspoken rule. If elevator B displayed floor 7 at 1:42 a.m., nobody entered, nobody investigated, nobody pressed additional buttons. They simply waited for the doors to close on their own. The strange occurrences continued. Guests occasionally reported hearing footsteps above the 6th floor. Housekeeping staff sometimes found old brass room keys resting inside elevator B. And every February, somebody inevitably claimed the elevator had taken them somewhere that shouldn't exist. Management always blamed exhaustion, or dreams, or confusion after long flights. Yet one piece of evidence remained impossible to explain. In 2021, security cameras captured elevator B opening at exactly 1:42 a.m. No one entered, no one exited. But when the doors closed, muddy footprints had suddenly appeared on the cabin floor. The prints led toward the back wall, stopped, then turned around, as though someone had changed their mind about leaving. Lauren still works at the hotel today. She avoids overnight inspections near elevator B whenever February arrives. And she always warns new employees about one thing. If the display ever shows a 7, don't get inside. Because according to every story passed down through generations of staff, the elevator always comes back. But nobody knows what happens to the people who decide to see whether the 7th floor is really still there. The only certainty is this. At 1:42 a.m., somewhere above the hotel roof, a man with a suitcase is still waiting for an elevator that never quite reaches the lobby. Story 5. The open door at the end of the hall. Hotels are designed to feel predictable. Every hallway looks the same. Every room follows the same layout. That sense of familiarity helps people relax in a building full of strangers. But when something breaks that pattern, even slightly, the effect can be deeply unsettling. The following incident took place at a hotel outside Seattle, Washington, and according to multiple guests and employees, one door at the end of a hallway was never supposed to be open. 33-year-old Ryan Mitchell checked into the Harbor Pines Hotel during a rainy business trip in October of 2024. The hotel itself was ordinary. 4 floors, modern renovations, quiet surroundings, nothing that stood out. Ryan received room 441, the final room at the end of the 4th floor corridor. The receptionist joked that he had one of the quietest rooms in the building. At first, she seemed absolutely right. The hallway remained silent. Soft music played through hidden speakers. Warm lights reflected against framed paintings on the walls. Everything felt normal, until Ryan noticed something strange. At the opposite end of the corridor, another door stood slightly open. Not wide enough to see inside, just enough to reveal darkness beyond it. He checked the room numbers while walking. 435, 436, 437, 438. His room. The open door sat beyond that. There shouldn't have been another room. The hallway was supposed to end. Assuming it belonged to a maintenance closet, Ryan ignored it. He unpacked, ordered food, and settled in for the evening. Around midnight, curiosity got the better of him. Opening his room door, he looked down the corridor again. The door remained open. Exactly the same distance. Exactly the same angle. Nobody entered. Nobody left. The darkness inside seemed completely unchanged. Stranger still, the soft background music stopped the closer he looked toward it. The far end of the hallway remained utterly silent. The following morning, Ryan mentioned the open door to a housekeeper. The woman immediately looked confused. "There is no door after room 441, she said. Ryan laughed. He had seen it with his own eyes. The housekeeper insisted otherwise. The building ended there. Always had. To prove his point, Ryan walked back upstairs. The corridor looked perfectly normal, and for the first time since arriving, the door was gone. Only a blank wall stood beyond room 441. No maintenance room. No hidden entrance. Nothing. Ryan convinced himself exhaustion and poor lighting had fooled him. That explanation lasted exactly one more night. At 2:18 a.m., he woke to the sound of a door slowly creaking open. The noise came from outside. Looking through the peephole, Ryan felt his stomach tighten. Because the door had returned. Standing open. Waiting. At the very end of the hallway. And this time, someone was standing inside the darkness. And this time, someone was standing inside the darkness. Ryan couldn't move. The figure stood perfectly still. No face. No movement. Just the outline of a person positioned several feet beyond the doorway. The hallway lights reached everything except that opening. It was as though the darkness swallowed them completely. After nearly 30 seconds, Ryan shut his room door and locked it. He told himself he would mention it to management in the morning. Nothing more. No investigating. No curiosity. Just sleep. At approximately 2:45 a.m., however, his room phone rang. The front desk. A young employee apologized for the late call, then asked an unusual question. "Sir, are you currently standing at the end of the fourth-floor hallway?" Ryan felt his blood turn cold. He explained that he'd been inside his room the entire time. The employee fell silent, because according to the security cameras, someone had been standing outside room 441 for almost 20 minutes. Motionless, facing the open doorway. The cameras couldn't identify who it was. The image quality deteriorated whenever they zoomed in. But the figure wore the same clothes Ryan had checked in with earlier that evening. Security immediately came upstairs. Ryan opened his door only after hearing their voices. 3 employees walked the corridor together, and the moment they reached the far wall, the mysterious door disappeared. Gone. Only solid drywall remained. The guards checked everything. No hidden entrances. No maintenance access. Nothing. One older employee refused to walk any closer. According to him, he had seen similar reports during his first years working there, always involving room 441, always after 2 a.m., and always during heavy rain. The next morning, Ryan requested answers. The hotel manager reluctantly shared part of the building's history. Before renovations in the early 1990s, the 4th floor extended farther than it does today. An additional wing contained several rooms, including room 443. A structural fire damaged that section decades earlier. The entire wing was demolished. The corridor shortened. The remaining wall built where the extension once began. Officially, room 443 ceased to exist. Yet guests occasionally reported seeing a door where none should be. The manager kept a file containing every complaint. Different years, different people, same description. An open doorway, darkness beyond it, someone standing inside, or someone standing outside looking in. Ryan searched local archives after returning home. One article immediately caught his attention. In October of 1989, a businessman staying in room 443 vanished during a severe storm. Staff members claimed he left his room shortly after 2 a.m. after reporting strange noises in the hallway. He never checked out, never contacted family, never appeared on security footage leaving the building. No body was ever found. The only witness was another guest, a woman staying nearby who reported seeing an open door at the end of the corridor and a man standing inside it, waiting. The case remains unsolved. Ryan never returned to the Harbor Pines Hotel, but curiosity eventually led him to read modern online reviews. Buried among ordinary comments about breakfast and room service, one post stood out. A traveler wrote about staying in room 441 during a rainy October night. The review ended with a single sentence: "If you ever see a door at the end of the hallway that shouldn't be there, keep walking and don't look inside." To this day, employees still avoid assigning room 441 during heavy storms whenever possible. Most dismiss the stories as imagination. Others quietly refuse to work the fourth floor after midnight. But according to the oldest staff members, the rule has never changed. If the door appears, leave it alone, because some guests check out. Some guests never do. And somewhere beyond a wall that no longer exists, a room at the end of a forgotten hallway may still be waiting for someone to open the door from the other side. Hotels are meant to offer comfort, rest, and a temporary escape from the world outside. Yet behind identical doors and endless corridors, every building carries its own history, some of which refuse to remain in the past. If these stories unsettled you, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know which hotel encounter disturbed you the most. And the next time you hear a knock after midnight or notice a door that wasn't there before, remember one thing: not every guest is still trying to find their way home.